Hey guys, Button25 here watching US EVA number 32. I'm doing my intro here because I wouldn't be able to get a word off later, so yeah. Pause the recording until the broadcast starts.
Well, an early good morning from Mission Control Houston, and welcome to our live coverage of the spacewalk today here on NASA TV. Getting a look now inside the International Space Station Flight Control Room, where the Orbit 1 and the Orbit 2 teams getting ready to hand over. Orbit 1 finishing up a night here in Mission Control Houston, getting the astronauts on board ready for this spacewalk, and Orbit 2 ready to take the reins and see them throughout the next several hours of walking in the vacuum of space. Today you're going to see the team led by Flight Director Greg Whitney. He's on the far right there, getting dug in at that Flight Director console. At the Capcom position, serving as the ground IV, is going to be astronaut Tracy Caldwell-Dyson. She's going to be the one talking directly to the two spacewalkers as they're moving throughout their tasks today. Capcom Christy Bertels will also be on board to speak with the station astronauts. And also inside the room, the lead EVA officer today organizing all the spacewalking teams is going to be Grant Slusser. He's going to be in charge of a team monitoring all of the suit information, as well as walking through the procedures and feeding information to the teams down here on the ground. But again, everything getting set up for this spacewalk to the two astronauts already in their suits, NASA astronauts Scott Kelly and Kjell Lindgren. Kjell Lindgren there on the left, and Scott Kelly there on the right. This is going to be the first spacewalk for both of these astronauts. Scott Kelly, 214 days into his fourth mission into space, on his year-long mission. And Kjell Lindgren, a first-time spaceflyer, also getting a first time to do a spacewalk today. Right now, inside of the suits, finishing up what's known as the in-suit light exercise protocol, basically just to acclimate their bodies to the lower operating pressure inside that suit. The U.S. EMU, or the Extravehicular Mobility Unit, the big white suit that they'll be wearing, which weighs in at just over 300 pounds, operates at a pressure of only 4.3 psi. That just makes the suit a lot easier to move, but you and I down here on planet Earth, and the astronauts were all just in the cabin, living at 14.7. So this in-suit light exercise is very important to purge any excess nitrogen from the blood, avoid what's commonly known as the bends, something deep-sea divers, scuba divers often have to worry about. So doing this exercise, just making sure that their bodies are acclimated to that lower pressure before they head outside and work for about 6.5 hours. And 6.5 hours is the target time for this spacewalk today, with 5 major tasks on the list for the two astronauts. Among those tasks, they will be splitting up to go out and do these separately, but they'll be installing some additional insulation protective blankets over the alpha magnetic spectrometer, that a large physics experiment looking for signs of dark matter that launched back in May of 2011 on Space Shuttle Endeavour's final mission. They'll be installing a large blanket and also a small thermal control wedge to help better maintain the thermal control system on board the alpha magnetic spectrometer. They've actually been using other parts of the station to block it from the sun in times of intense heating, but this blanket just giving it a little bit more protection to hopefully extend the life of the AMS even further, already well beyond its designed or anticipated 3-year life. The AMS team's hoping to go all the way out to 2024 with the rest of the space station and possibly beyond. So this will be a big step in ensuring that. They'll also be heading over to what's known as an MBSU, a main bus switching unit, which is essentially a power distribution box that's responsible for routing power from the station's solar arrays to other systems downstream the power channels. This is actually a failed box that suffered a fault some time ago and was replaced with a spare. But by removing some of the MLI, the multi-layer insulation on this box, they'll clear the way for the station's Dexter robot, the multi-purpose dexterous manipulator, to unbolt and then move the box for it to eventually be brought inside the station and potentially opened up by the crew members on board, who could possibly replace a few components if possible, and then return that switching unit to service.
So for those who don't know,
there again will be splitting up. Scott Kelly heading off to lubricate what's known as the latching end effector on the station's main robotic arm, the Canadarm2. One end of this was done back in February by NASA astronaut Terry Virts on US EVA number 30 back on February 25th. So the other end being done by Scott Kelly today. That end effector was actually grabbing on to not only the station itself to steady the arm, but things like spacecraft and other payloads. While he's doing that, NASA astronaut Kjell Lindgren is going to be starting off with a cable routing task. We'll be routing 2 cables today, a power and a data cable from Node 1, also known as Unity, all the way down to Node 2, Harmony, where a pressurized mating adapter is scheduled to be moved, PMA number 3. Once it's moved, it will eventually have an international docking adapter, IDA number 3, attached to it. Will become a new docking port for future commercial crew vehicles. This one's going to be located on the space-facing side of Harmony, so some of that cable routing, which a lot of cable routing done a little bit earlier this year, to continue preparing the station for those international docking adapters, which will be installed over the coming years. And then aside from that, one more task on the list for the crew will be the installation of a non-propulsive valve. This was actually removed by NASA astronaut Butch Wilmore, also on that EVA 30 back on February 25th. It was removed back then to make clearance for the relocation of the permanent multi-purpose module, the PMM, which has since moved from the Earth-facing side of Unity to the forward end of the Tranquility module. So with that move already completed, this propulsive valve going to be installed by Kjell Lindgren as his last task on the schedule for today. So again, 5 major tasks. There's a number of get-aheads on the list, should they have the time, but right now all those task schedules take about 6.5 hours, and will be the first of 2 spacewalks for these 2, scheduled to also head out the door coming up on November 6th to do some reconfiguration of the station's cooling system to get it back to its original configuration before some repair work was done in the past. So a lot on the docket for these 2 today. In the latter stages of that in-suit light exercise, expecting for them to switch their suits to battery and begin this spacewalk sometime around 7 a.m. Central Time this morning. They could get ahead, they could go out a little bit later. All just depends on where they are on the timeline. Currently about 15 minutes ahead. And just one more quick peek inside the Quest airlock here. They're going to be assisted in all of this suit-up activity by JAXA astronaut Camille Yui. He's the one closer to the camera there. And in the background there, Russian cosmonaut Sergei Volkov also lending a hand this morning.
For those of you who don't know, Dexter is like the hand for the Canadarm robotic arm aboard the station.
And so while they continue to get suited up, just to give you a more in-depth look at what's ahead for these 2 today, we have an animation with some narration by our lead spacewalk officer, Grant Slusser, today that he presented last week. Why don't we take a look at the carefully choreographed 6.5 hours that we're going to be watching in just a little bit.
Scott will come out first at the airlock. We'll hand out the bags. We'll start handing out all the bags. This is to keep us from going back in to the airlock midway through the EVA. So we'll head out. Kjell will come out shortly. Scott's going to carry the MLI bag that we're going to put the MBSU MLI on, and Kjell's going to take care of the lead lube equipment that's going to go stage at the lead lube area. So Kjell will grab the BLT or ball screw lubricating tool from Scott and move it over to ESP2 where he's going to pick up an APFR. So Scott's going to head out. We're both heading to the starboard truss on the forward side out to almost the stars. So we're going to go up to Cetus Spur with Scott. He's going to translate out all the way to the end to Sarge area, where he's going to go up on the Sarge handrail, to the logistics carrier module, where MBSU is stowed. But as we get there, he's going to take the MLI bag that he has and stow it on the bag. While he's doing that, Chell's going to be working to get an APFR off the ESP2 and drop off the lead lube tools and bring the APFR out to AMS. When Scott's got that bag deployed, he's going to start removing the MLI or off the MBSU. He's going to start tying down what we call the skirt, which is a lower portion of the MLI. It has 8 tabs on the front. We're going to tie 4 down to one handrail, 4 down to the other. And near the electric connections, we're going to tie that side of the MLI skirt down. After we get it tied down, we're going to move to the aft side where there are 2 bolts that remove the MBSU MLI. After we've got it there, Scott's going to stuff it back in the bag and allow Joe to bring it back inside. Here's Joe going to the APFR area where he's going to drop off the lead lube tool and grab the APFR from that area and take it out to AMS. He's pretty much going to go the same route. He's going to go up to the forward truss and out to the seated card area, up the AMS, and then deploy the APFR. Because the translation holds on the AMS, we're taking the APFR out there for additional handholds and translation points. Once it gets there, we'll take some pictures and install a small wedge over one of the radiators. It's going to slide into an area, and I have a video shortly, slide into the area between the 2 radiators and secure there. And here is how we're sliding it over the main radiator, and then we're grappling with a wire tie to tie it down. Once we get it secured, then the MLI will pop out like a small tent, filling the wedge in between the 2 radiators to protect the radiators. Once we're there, Shell's going to work back to put on the big blanket. You'll see it here. This is point A, the first tie down he does. And you saw the blanket kind of pop in. It's not going to happen that quick on orbit. We're going to have to go down to a second strap, put that strap around AMS, and then work to a third and a fourth strap. So this third strap, it's very possible to get into the APFR and tie that strap around the strut right there by the wedge, and then he'll move aft and zenith to protect the final area of staging there. Once we do that, it does have a grounding pin on it that we'll apply. And once the grounding pin is installed, we're complete with both AMS, small blanket, and large blanket to protect their pumps. And here's an MBL video just showing the actual size of the blanket as it's deployed. He's working down what would have been the NATO part of the previous photo. So after we get the 2 blankets installed and the MBSU MLI removed, Chell and Scott will work together to bring both the APFR and the MBSU MLI back. Chell's going to grab the bag and go back completely the same way he came to the airlock, where he'll stow that bag outside the airlock and grab a cable bag. The cable bag is the one Mike spoke of with the PMA IDA cables in it.
There's Pierce.
Again, stowing most of the bags on the outside of the airlock so we don't have to ingress. Scott will come back with the APFR that we grabbed from the AMS area and install it at ESP2 to perform the lead lubing. The arm will be presented there and move in close to Scott. We have some photos of that a little bit later. Chell will grab that cable bag and go nader underneath the lab up to the port side, where we'll deploy the bag. While he's doing that, we're giving him kind of good reference handholds of where the cable is going to be tied to or deployed to. After he installs the cable bag, he's going to pull out the forward portion of the cable and temporarily stow it on a handrail. That's going to give us a good point where the center line of the cable is. We'll secure it at the center point and then grab the aft portion of the cable out of the bag and route it zenith on the lab over to the node where we'll connect the power cables up. So the orange cable is the first one we'll do. It is data for both IDA and PMA3, so we'll route it, connect it to the data port, and as we move back forward, After we move back forward, we'll push all the cable slide forward, make sure we have enough when we install the IDA. Once he's back at the center point, he's going to move that directly forward on station, over to node 2, and then up to the CVM area where we're going to deploy those 2 cables, tucking it out of the way of any pedal deployments on the CVM. Once he's complete with the orange cable or the data cable, we're going to go back and get the power cable, which we call the purple-white cable. He'll do the exact same thing where he stows the forward half of the cable out and then routes the aft portion of the cable back towards node 1 where we're going to plug it in again, nadir of node 1. As he's done with that, he'll move back forward, pushing the cable forward, getting all the slack out, and back to the center point. At this point, Shell's going to break out of the cables and go work on the MPV. And while we're doing that, Scott's already back at the lead, working on the lubricating Lee B. Here's a good shot of Lee A that was previously lubricated. As we bring it in, you can see the centralizing ball screw right in the middle and the 4 latches. We're going to label those latches around clockwise just so we have a reference point, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And each side has an A and a B side, just so we can talk to Scott while we're greasing up the equalization brackets and the rollers. There's 2 equalization brackets and 4 rollers on each latch. You can see them when they're extended, so that's what we're going to grease. When it's retracted, we'll also grease the linear bearing tracks on each side of the latch. Here you can see a demonstration of the centralizing ball screw using the ball screw lubricating tool, or the BLT as we call it. He's got grease on it, address it to the screw, and push it forward. And let's make sure that we have the grease in the grooves that we're looking at. Now this one's an easy ball screw, so we're going to attack it first because it's very visible. The other ones are blind mate. You can look here and see just an indication that there is grease that's moved by seeing the ridges in the grease. Here's the blind mate connector on any one of the latches. They're all pretty much the same. We're going to go in through a small cutout near the electrical connections, go back about 12 inches.
Inches, 30 centimeters.
Trying to miss any electronics or bolts that are in there. Once we get it into the depth, which is the tape that's on the PLT, we're going to rotate the cradle in towards the ball screw. Once it's there, then we'll apply grease to the ball screw that's in the back of the latches. And of course, this is very easy to see on our trainer, but really hard to see in space. So after that, we're going to go after those linear bearing tracks, grease both sides of each linear bearing track to get grease, and as the latch moves forward, it'll pull the grease back through the whole linear bearing track. After that, we're going to go to the equalization brackets. Both inboard and outboard, there are 4 points for the equalization brackets and 4 rollers on each side, A side and B side. There's 2 each. So we'll attack those equalization brackets and rollers. And after that, we're complete, taking photos and getting out of here. And I think the next video you'll see is the arm moving in. And if you look closely on that, you can see the dots of grease that Terry applied on EVA 30. On each latch, you can see grease dropped on each roller on the equalization bracket. PV or non-propulsive vent, go zenith on node 3 to the port side in cone where we're going to install the MPV. You'll see it here. It's a really tight area. We have the PMM that was relocated, removed, and there's a plate on it. It's removed for this video. I'll show you in just a second how tight the tolerances is. But we're going to move that first plate and then put the non-propulsive vent back on. Again, this is a very tight workspace. You can see here in the MBL video of how tight those 2 modules are actually going to be together. So we're using a lot of special tools to get that tied down when we get it in and installed. And Chell's got the longest arm, so that's why we're sending him to the MPV. Moving Scott over the zenith of the lab over to the port side. He's going to run the forward cable that Chell had temporarily stowed, run it the exact same way over the orange cable, and that's our power cable deployed back on the handrails getting ready for CBM, PMA move, and IDA install. Once we're done with that, we'll clean up the work sites and head back to the airlock. That's about a 6.5-hour EVA, and coming inside and getting ready for ARTS EVA in a week later.
And welcome back to Mission Control Houston. That again, a walkthrough of all of the tasks today by the lead EVA officer for EVA 32, Grant Slusser, now here inside the room talking to his team. The two astronauts, Scott Kelly and Kjell Lindgren, continuing to march towards the start, hopefully within the next hour or so. The two finishing up their pre-breathe protocol, and they'll still have to don their safer units, the simplified aid for EVA rescue, the small propulsive jetpacks that get attached to the bottom of the life support packs on the back of these EMUs that should the astronauts become untethered for any reason, they can use the safer to orient themselves and get themselves back to the station structure. So that one of the last tasks that has to occur before they can head into the crew lock, shut the door between themselves and the space station, and then begin depress. The spacewalk will begin as all do from the U.S. segment once they switch their suits over to battery power. At that point, the clocks will begin. Again, a planned time of 6.5 hours for this spacewalk. The first time heading out into the vacuum of space for both of these astronauts. 5 major tasks on their list today, mostly maintenance and upgrade work for some future additions to the station. And this will just be the first of 2. The pair are also scheduled to head outside on November 6th for some reconfiguration of the station's cooling systems. But again, everything continuing to go by the book so far. The team's roughly 15 minutes or so ahead of the timeline so far this morning, so we'll see if they're able to get an early start to this. But Scott Kelly and Kjell Lindgren suited up and continuing to prepare inside of the Quest airlock. And also at this point, the Orbit 2 team has received the handover from Orbit 1, and all the teams in place now. Flight Director Greg Whitney going to be leading the Orbit 2 team today for the spacewalk. You can see him there talking to astronaut Tracy Caldwell-Dyson, who's going to be what's known as the ground IV, basically riding shotgun with these astronauts, walking them through all of their procedures. Caldwell-Dyson herself, an experienced spacewalker, providing the voice and the commands and all of the assistance to these astronauts while they move throughout their time in space. They're also being assisted on board the station by Japanese astronaut Kamiya Yui, helping them get suited up along with Russian cosmonaut Sergei Volkov. And Yui going to be offering his help throughout the spacewalk from on board as well. In just about 6.5 minutes or so, Flight Director Greg Whitney is going to go around the room and get a go-no-go from all of the various system controllers to see if they are go for the depressurization of the airlock, and getting ready to head out towards the start of the spacewalk.
Reconnect the gas supply flex hose, and it's important that you hear a click when you're reconnecting it.
Okay, то есть I disconnect from neon gas supply and close the valve, disconnect, and one more connect.
Yes, that's affirmative.
disconnect.
And we copy. Did you hear the click when it reconnected this time?
Yes, I click. I here yesterday and here today. Click.
Okay, sounds good. And can you please reopen the valves again?
It's open.
And so Orbit 2 Flight Director Greg Whitney just went around the room getting a go from all of the various system leads. The go for depress should be coming in about just a little over 4 minutes. So everything continuing to march towards the start of the spacewalk. Again, the spacewalk will formally start once the two spacesuits have been switched over to battery power. At that point, the crew members will be in what's known as the crew lock portion of the Quest airlock, and it'll be depressurized down to 0 psi, basically getting them ready to head out into the vacuum of space before the airlock door can be opened. So again, everything continuing to march towards that, and we will give you a heads up once the EVA has formally begun. So now just under 2 minutes away from the expected go for depress. That doesn't mean the depress will start in 2 minutes, but we will be getting much closer. Should be getting some video from back inside the airlock in about 2 or 3 minutes from now, once our satellite comms pick back up. NASA astronaut Kjell Lindgren and Scott Kelly, again, already suited up, ready to go. Scott Kelly is going to be EV1, or the lead spacewalker for this activity today. He'll be wearing a suit with red stripes visible on the legs. And then Kjell Lindgren, EV2, wearing a suit with no stripes. Again, this is the first spacewalk for both of these astronauts. Scott Kelly, a veteran spaceflyer, on his 4th flight into space, having previously flown on 2 shuttle missions and 1 long-duration mission, Expedition 25 and 26, and currently 214 days and counting into his year-long stay on board the International Space Station. Kjell Lindgren, a first-time spaceflyer, who arrived with Camilla Yui and Oleg Kononenko back in July. Both of these astronauts have trained pretty extensively down here in the pool, but a lot of these tasks they weren't able to train for in the NBL, so getting a chance to go over the procedures and everything virtually while on board the station and conferring with teams down here on the ground. Luckily, both have been in space for quite a while now, so well acclimated to working in the microgravity environment and should be able to knock out all of these tasks in the planned 6.5-hour spacewalk time. And so at this point, all of the teams go to continue marching towards that depressurization. You can see the safer units being attached to Kjell Lindgren's suit. Scott Kelly in the suit with the red stripes already way in the background there inside the crew lock. Kjell Lindgren joining him shortly. Lindgren being assisted by Kamiya Yui and Sergei Volkov there as they affix the Safer device to the back of his life support pack. Safer, again, the simplified aid for EVA rescue, a small contingency backpack with propulsive capabilities just in the event that the astronauts were to become untethered for any reason from the station, using multiple tethers to secure themselves at all times, however. But that Safer just serving as the kind of that life preserver just in case, able to reorient and then propel the astronauts back towards the station structure. So once both crew members are inside of the crew lock, they'll be able to close the hatches and begin depressurizing the crew lock, bringing it down to vacuum. And then at that point, the crew members will get to go to switch over to battery power. The spacewalk will begin, and then they'll be ready to head out of the airlock. Scott Kelly's going to make his way out first, followed shortly by Kjell Lindgren, who's going to hand out the various bags containing all the equipment that they're going to have today, including that cover for the alpha magnetic spectrometer, and also all of the lubrication tools that Scott Kelly will be using on the Canadarm2 today.
Airlock Houston on 1, no response required. We've done our final comm config, and EV crew is now hot mic'd.
EV1 copies. How do you hear me? Or Christine, sorry. And EV2 copies. How do you hear me?
Houston copies, and here's EV1 and 2 loud and clear.
Thank you. Copy. Yeah, you the same.
And just a reminder, EV1 is Scott Kelly, the lead spacewalker for today's activity. EV2, Kjell Lindgren. Once the helmet cams are activated, you'll be able to get an over-the-shoulder view of the astronauts as they move around the outside of the International Space Station. Scott Kelly's camera will have a small number 18 in the bottom corner. Kjell Lindgren will have the number 17 on his helmet cam, so that way you'll be able to differentiate between whose view you're seeing. But again, Scott Kelly right now inside of the crew lock. Kjell Lindgren about to make his way in there. and then marching towards that depressurization. So once the go is given, the depressurization of the crew lock typically taking roughly 30 minutes or so. They'll start the pumps to begin drawing the air out of the crew lock. They'll stop at designated pressures so they can perform leak checks on their suits, make sure everything has a tight seal before they bring it all the way down to vacuum. But all of the leak checks done while still inside the equipment lock were positive or negative, showed no leaks. So everything with the suits functioning normally as they continue to get ready for this spacewalk. And as you heard, the communications now activated, so able to hear both Kjell Lindgren just now giving the wave, EV2, and Scott Kelly. And they're going to be talking with astronaut Tracy Caldwell-Dyce and the ground IV here in Mission Control Houston today to help them walk through all the procedures for this 6.5-hour spacewalk. And Kamiya Yui and Sergei Volkov now working to get Kjell Lindgren into that crew lock, a fairly tight fit sometimes, as you can imagine, with two 300-plus pound suits and a number of bags with all of their equipment inside. But once both Lindgren and Kelly are snugly inside that crew lock, they'll be able to close the hatch and begin the depressurization.
This is 611. Your go above Scott. Is that okay, right?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Unless that's going to block you getting out, Scott. What's that? Is that going to, I guess this is a better config for you getting out. I need to be above you.
My feet need to be a little bit higher, I think.
Okay, so then you need to, your feet need to go to my left, go to this side, to the aft end of the...
Okay.
Okay, that works.
What's my left foot heading, Kamiya?
Just a moment. It's Kjell's like west. So...
Okay, how's this for you guys?
It works for me.
Oh, this is great.
Okay.
All right.
That's good.
Yeah, this is a good
Right now,
for me.
Clear from the structure.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
To reach that handle.
Yeah.
Hey, Kamiya, take the BRT off. I don't think I'm going to be able to use the BRT because I need to move around a little bit more and just kind of...
So I'm going to release your BRT.
Yeah. Just throw it over my arm here. All right.
Please let me know if you need anything, and after you configure your body position, I'm going to secure your tethers.
Okay. I'm ready for tethers.
Yeah, I'm ready for tethers.
So once we have the tethers, maybe we can pack these bags back in under the bungees. This large cable bag's going to block your hatch off a little bit if we don't speed it up.
I think it's actually good.
Do you like it there? It can be moved up the wall a little bit, so we'll just
Yeah, maybe a little bit forward.
Yeah. I'll let Kimmy help us with that.
Hey, Kimmy, and I need you to check my helmet camera, and put my lights on, and make sure they're straight.
So your TV is already on. So I'm going to put you on your breaker, right?
I'll put on the lights.
Breaker on.
Yeah, I got the lights. Don't worry about it.
At
thought you were going to do them at the same time as the...
Understand. Just make sure that you're already on.
Let me see here if I can see. Yeah, I got a green light in the mirror.
I see a green light.
Hey.
You need light?
No, we're doing good.
Understand. So I'm going to do the pizza from now.
Okay. Sounds good.
And the suit IV today, Kamiya Yui working to get Scott Kelly and Chellingren situated inside of that crew lock, doing all of their final suit checks, activating all their final systems before they're getting ready to head inside, begin the depressurization. And again, once they switch over to battery power, the spacewalk will formally begin, scheduled to last 6.5 hours. Meanwhile, Russian cosmonaut Sergei Volkov in the red shirt, Oleg Kononenko in the black shirt there on the left, standing by in the equipment lock to give a helping hand and take a few pictures of these astronauts as they get ready to conduct their first ever spacewalk.
See, I'm in 2 reels and unlock. I see a white hook to the red pack and a green hook. I'm sorry. White hook to the green pack, green hook to the red pack. And I see my red hook is on my left D-ring extender, gate closed, locked, block on block.
Okay, Kimmy, so here's, that stays there. That stays there, Kimmy. Here's my right waist tether, and that goes to his anchor hook. So just put his anchor hook on here, dude. Okay? Perfect. I see my right waist tether small hook is to my D-ring and the gate closed, slider locked. And his anchor hook is to the big hook. 2 gates closed, 2 sliders locked. Okay. I'm in the good tether config.
You guys have really good data config, I think.
Yeah.
Move on to step 42. From now, I'm going to remove your water switch guard from you.
Okay. Order switch card. Okay, I see switch guard off.
My switch guard is off, my water is off.
And so now the hatch between the equipment lock and the crew lock inside of Quest getting ready to come down. Continuing to get ready to begin that depressurization of the crew lock with Scott Kelly and Chad Lindgren now inside. Once it starts, that depressurization typically takes about 30 minutes or so. They'll have a couple of pegged points where they'll stop the depressurization just to do leak checks on the suits, make sure everything's still in a good configuration before they begin sucking all the air out of that crew lock, bringing it down to vacuum, and getting these astronauts ready to open up the hatch and head outside to begin this spacewalk. So everything continuing to go per the plan today. Still anticipating a start time around 7 a.m. Central Time this morning.
Good reach to your SCU. Yeah, absolutely. And Kimia, make sure the SCU, the line, the umbilicals are routed right and clear. They're not underneath anything.
Needs to go this way a little bit.
Okay, I missed your call. You mean like SCU?
Yeah, just make sure the umbilicals are kind of clear of everything and not like underneath a bungee, or it looks like we'll be able to get them.
Scott, I see your SCU
Right now
is clear.
Okay.
Okay.
Clear from the structure of the bungee. Umbilicals. Sorry, John, I missed.
If you can just slide this bag up so it's more under the bungee on that
for the side,
port. That aft wall. I'm sorry, aft, not port. And maybe get perfect. Yeah, excellent. Great.
Yeah, if you need anything more, please let me know.
Okay.
I'm good.
So we're gonna close your hatches. So see you then.
Thanks, Kimia.
See you.
Thank you. Good job.
See you, boss. And Scott, watch your visor on that handle.
Thank you.
And so with that, Kamiya Yui and Sergei Volkov working to secure the hatch between the equipment and crew sections of the Quest airlock. Begin the 6.5 hour spacewalk. So now the depressurization event will now occur. It typically takes about 30 minutes for the crew lock to be completely depressed.
On the DCM, same, and switch comfort in prime.
And after this depress is complete, they'll be able to switch their suits over to battery power. The clocks will begin on this spacewalk today.
Step 3 for John on the UIA. Please switch depress pump power on.
Depress pump power is on.
Okay, waiting for 10 seconds. Okay, 10 seconds stop. Step 4 for John. So depress pump manual isolation valve to open. And you guys gonna expect alert sound. So be
EV1.
The depress pump man ISO valve is open.
And both of you on the DCM, please check the suit, monitor suit speed gauge less than 5.5.
Okay.
EV2.
EV1 copy is 2.7 right now.
Okay. And when crew lock at 6.0, or you're gonna have alert sound, so be be prepared. Just for the heads up, hotel, once it's cooler pressure at 5.0 psi, you will close the valve, manual depress pump, or manual isolation valve.
Copy. At 5, I will close the valve.
That is correct.
At 5 psi, right? That's correct.
Okay. And you are going to have alarm tone at 6.0 psi.
Copy.
So the depress right now underway. Once they get to 5 psi, they're going to do a quick pause in the depress activity to perform a leak check on their suit real quick. Both crew members will do that leak check before they resume the depressurization of the crew section of the Quest airlock. And then begin heading out of the airlock door. Just a reminder, Scott Kelly is going to be the first one out. Once he's outside, he'll work with Kjell Lindgren, EV2, to hand out all of the bags that has all the various equipment and other items that they're going to need for this spacewalk before they head out to their first task. Scott Kelly's first task today will be the removal of the MLI, the multi-layer insulation that's currently covering one of the MBSUs, the main bus switching units, that was removed after a fault, currently sitting on a logistics carrier. He's going to be removing that MLI, stowing it in one of their bags, and then bringing it back to the airlock. That MBSU eventually going to be unbolted by the space station's robotic device Dexter. The depress continuing. We just heard call down the pressure at right around 5.5 psi. Once it hits 5, they'll do a quick pause to do leak checks with their suits, both Scott Kelly and Kjell Lindgren. Once those leak checks are finished and everything looks good, they'll continue the depress.
Okay, airlock's at 5.0. Manual isolation valve is closed.
Okay. So let's move on to the step 7. On the DCM, both crews switch display status to status until leak check question mark displayed.
Okay. Leak check EV1.
Okay.
Leak check EV2.
Then switch display to yes, hold for 2 seconds, and then follow the displayed instructions.
Okay. Leak check complete EV1.
Copy.
Leak check complete EV2.
So let's move on to step 8. Check auto actuator in EVA, both crew members.
Stand by.
think I'm in EVA here.
No, right.
Okay,
You
I'm
guys
in
are doing great
EV.
and still ahead of time. So
Yeah, EV1 is in EVA. And EV2 is in EVA.
for step 10 for chill, cool up, depress pump with expecting balance down, depress pump manual isolation valve being open.
Okay. Depress
Free
pump
tap,
manual
and open
isolation valve is
emergency
open.
fail.
And sorry, Kimmy, I stepped on you. The depress pump manual isolation valve is open.
That's done. So step 11 for me, emergency fail valve is open. And both of you guys, please monitor suit P gauge is less than 5.5.
Okay, EV1.
Okay, for chill, when crew lock pressure hits 2.0, you're gonna close depress pump manual isolation valve close.
Copy.
And so the depress has resumed. The leak checks good for both suits. So now marching down to where the crew lock hits about 2 psi. The pump's off. The pump's actually not working efficiently below 2 psi, so all of the air being drawn out of the Quest airlock right now being stored in tanks on the outboard of it. However, once they get down to 2 psi, most of that air is actually just vented off into space, and that'll be able to bring it down to that vacuum pressure of 0 psi before the crew is then able to open the hatch, switch their suits over to battery power, and begin this spacewalk. So the pump's turned off, the remaining air getting vented, and then very soon the pressure will be equalized right around 0 psi to make them equal with the environment outside of the airlock as they prepare to open the hatch soon.
Slider lock, block on block. My low deviating anchor is to my right. D-ring extender. Gate closed. Slider lock, block on block.
Okay, sounds like good.
And let's see what I have here. Yeah, I can't see my right waist tether, but
Yeah, I'm looking for...
I can see my safety center that's connected to my mini workstation, and I got a red light.
Yep, I concur.
The D-ring extender, gate closed, locked.
Let me stick up my safety tether. Here's my safety tether for my left shoulder.
And then I got an unlocked tether reel. The red tether reel has a green hook, gate closed, and it's unlocked. And then the white hook is to the green reel. Gate closed and locked. And then my anchor hook is on my mini workstation.
Okay, copy.
Sounds good.
And this is EV2. My red hook is on my left gearing extender. Gate closed, slider lock, lock on block. My yellow or blank hook is to the green tether reel. Gate closed, slider lock, lock on block. My green hook is on the red reel. Gate closed and in unlock. That is the green hook. I have two reels in unlock, and my anchor is on Scott's weights tether, and I have two gates closed, two locked, block on block.
Hey, Kellen, just a point of clarification. I think you called what's called the white hook. I think you called it the blank hook.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right.
Okay.
That terminology, yeah, the white hook. The blank or anchor hook is on your weight tether with two gates closed, both block on block and locked.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, and for Scott, just a heads up. Once EV hatch delta P is less than 0.5, you are go for open the hatch.
Okay, right now it looks like it's set 1.
Okay, understand.
Or a little 1.2 or something.
Okay.
And so both spacewalkers laying out how all of their tethers are configured, very carefully choreographed, how their tethers are attached, both to the anchor points and to each other at this point, just to make sure that they're always attached in multiple places to the station during these spacewalks.
Approximately 0. We're gonna soon.
Teams down here giving the thumbs up, a good configuration for these tethers. Once it reaches, once the pressure inside the crew lock reaches under half a psi, they'll get the go to open up the hatch. And then very soon after that, they'll be able to switch their suits over to battery power, and the spacewalk will officially begin.
Does MCC have video in here? Do our cameras work in here?
They do. I think sometimes they're kind of intermittent, just like the comm is.
Sure.
The station, Houston on 1. We don't expect to see any video until you guys are out the door.
Okay.
And so as you just heard the ground IV Tracy Caldwell Dyson radio up, the helmet cams on these astronauts should be activated once they are out the door and out of the airlock. Just a reminder, you'll be able to see a small number in the lower corner of the screen whenever looking through the helmet cams. Scott Kelly, EV1, will have the number 18 on his, and Kjell Lindgren will have the number 17 on his. Kjell Lindgren, EV2 for the spacewalk. The depress of the crew lock almost completed, getting closer to the start of this EVA number 32 out of the Quest airlock for station support and maintenance, the 189th spacewalk in support of all station assembly and maintenance, the first for these two today.